exception to that. Second part is that multilaterals have miserably failed and people have bypassed them. So any future thinking on Afghanistan on economic cooperation, my suggestion would be that it cannot be done bilaterally unless the crucial issues like Ambassador Durrani has raised, the core issues are addressed, which will take longer time. But perhaps, involvement of some of the regional countries in a dialogue might open up some space for trust, because the interests are, kind of common. Bilaterally, neither India, Pakistan is going anywhere, nor Afghanistan, Pakistan will go anywhere. So I think we need to be innovative rather than looking at established multilateral systems. Some homegrown, like this track 2, if this can bring a third country which has issues of connectivity and border, perhaps a little bit space can be opened. And my closing thing is that World Bank, we have done lots of foolish stuff. A huge infrastructure, the Tapis of this world, the Casas of this world, and others, without understanding the deep political knowledge and insight, the culture and others. So money and these things don't resolve, is far more complicated than that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Harun Sharif Saab. He's a big proponent of investment. He's chasing investments, trying to connect companies in different countries. But obviously the primary prerequisite for that is a conducive environment at home.
And huge competition within Asia is emerging.
Yeah.
The time has changed. It's not that Pakistan is a big market or something. Afghanistan also needs to think that not only global sport, global attention has shifted, but there are new tiny little countries like Cambodia and others who are attracting investors a lot better than this region. So we need to do some extraordinary stuff. The old school ways of just, opening up a dialogue, I think time for that is running very short.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Hamza, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, okay, thank you very much. Now it's your turn, because we have spoken a lot about connectivity, about why Pakistan-Afghan relations have not evolved the way it was expected since August 2021. How has Uzbekistan developed its relations with Afghanistan, with the Taliban since 2021? And how is bilateral and transit trade taking place, if at all? Has it been affected by the closure of the Pakistan-Afghanistan border? It's over to you, Hamza.
Well, thank you very much for the question. I think Uzbekistan has changed, and generally not just Uzbekistan, but Central Asian countries, but basically changed their strategies since the political event happened in Afghanistan since 2021, August 2021. The policy since then was mainly security-driven in Central Asian countries regarding Afghanistan. And since then, most of the countries, led by especially Uzbekistan, the economic relations and pragmatism has taken the lead in terms of developing a bilateral relationship with Afghanistan. And since then, we can see a lot of economic developments, trade relations, transportation-related projects, and even people-to-people relationship between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan has been increasing. And of course, Central Asian countries, especially Uzbekistan, the political leadership in these countries and academia, general academia, accepts the fact that the relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan has a consequential effect on the relationship between Afghanistan and Central Asian countries. So therefore, we can see that development on President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's visits, last visit to Islamabad. So both parties discussed their relationship, the role of Pakistan in terms of establishing, or not establishing, in terms of having a prosperous and peace Afghanistan. So I think the academia in Uzbekistan and policymakers in Uzbekistan, they recognize the role of Pakistan in terms of having a good neighborly relationship with Afghanistan. And since the border closure of between Afghanistan and Pakistan, I think the trade a little bit increased between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan because of the natural, not natural, I would say, because of the obstacles, I think, in my opinion, wrongly created between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Yeah, we can recognize the political setbacks between two countries, but I think still, the healthy relationship should be kept in certain level. When I last visited Kabul, even among the political and economic leaders of current government in Kabul, they also stated the concerns about Pakistan is becoming more aggressive in terms of using its economic and trade capacity to increase its security capacity when it comes to relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So that's a sentiment in Kabul I could sense. And in general, I'm going to conclude here. Yes, the border closures and politicizing the border and the healthy trade relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan actually gave an upward development in terms of trade between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan. There is also another the side of this development between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan when it comes to trade development. Central Asian countries are increasingly diversifying its heavily reliance on Russia, and Russia has been sanctioned by the Western countries, and because of the heavy sanction imposed on Russia, Central Asian countries historically have been economically very much dependent on Russia. So Central Asian countries are trying to diversify its economic relationship. So in that sense, the increasing trade relationship between Afghanistan and Central Asian countries are partly because of the sanctioned Russia, not just because of the Afghan-Pakistan relationship, but just the Central Asian countries themselves, they are kind of trying to diversify its economic relationship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Hamza. That was interesting. Now, may I turn to Professor Ma Cheng? What you have to tell us about the Chinese perspective on this situation now that you have spent a few months in Pakistan, having seen how the things have been evolving between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We are part of the BRI, and whether closed borders can basically help the economies grow and go beyond borders. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. And I just want to share something about the Chinese, my perspective, and also as the sir mentioned, so the Urumqi dialogue is cannot have any agreement to take place. So, but I think that still very important platform, and And the Afghanistan question has been the most complicated, the right in terms of geopolitics and economies in the post-Cold War the scenarios. So it has been connected to the regional and global politics in the various ways affecting the foreign and strategic policy of the states in the region and beyond. And the transit political economy, non-traditional security complications, and the complexity of the state the manner of the engagement with Afghanistan highly challenging and the daunting task. So China as a close neighbor and all wider strategic cooperative partner of Pakistan, and also a country that shares a long border with Afghanistan, so has always maintained that stability and development in Pakistan and Afghanistan are closely intertwined with Chinese own outer security and development interests. And also the China this time and the Chinese stance on the Pakistan and Afghanistan relations is consistent, clear, and constructive, which has been repeatedly reaffirmed in high-level bilateral interactions between China and Pakistan, especially during the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif's official visit to the China and the issues of the joint statement between the two sides. And landmark consensus highlighted in this joint document is full the recognition and the firm support for the Urumqi process. China has launched and advanced Urumqi process for mediation and promotion that has built a regular multilateral dialogue platform that brings all the parties to the negotiation table, abandoning the confrontation, excluding the external geopolitical, the middling, and adhere to the principle of Afghanistan-led, Afghanistan-owned practices. So for Pakistan, also this process provides a reliable channel to communication its legitimate security concerns to the Afghan government and coordinate cross-border counterterrorism operations, resolve the long-standing border friction through the peace talk. So, and the co-mediation of the motivation of China will continue to as a sincere the facilitator rather than the middling, the manipulator. So also I want to mention the one thing is very important. So China will never use this platform to advance own geopolitical gains. And so for this, while the supporting the Urumqi the process, China always sincerely and consistently cared about the overall situation of Pakistan and Afghanistan both. So China holds three core positions on this issue. So firstly, the Chinese strongly to support the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Outside country should be interfere in the internal affairs of the two nations. So they should not take advantage of the difference between Pakistan and Afghanistan to create regional conflicts to their own strategic interest. Second, China puts non-traditional security operation on the Pakistan and Afghanistan border as a top priority. Terrorist group hiding in the border area, so also threaten China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan equally. So China supports Pakistan and Afghanistan in carry out joint border patrol, sharing intelligence, remove terrorist bases, and stopping the spreading of the extremist risks. So this security cooperation is the basic condition for all practical cooperation between Pakistan and also Afghanistan. Third, also China is deeply concerned about Afghanistan's long-term economy slowdown and seriously human problems. So as many speakers also mentioned, so China also understands the huge pressure Pakistan faced from the hosting millions of Afghani refugees over decades. So China believes good and long-term ties between Pakistan and Afghanistan could not rely only on the security talks, and the economy and people's livelihood cooperation is essential to build a solid foundation for their bilateral relations. And also, I want to in conclusion, I want to say the Pakistan and the Afghanistan are so geographically inseparable, but politically distant. So the challenge is not lack of culture. The culture is absence of trust, verification, and durable institutions. From my perspective, so stability in Pakistan and Afghanistan is directly linked to the regional security, counterterrorism, connectivity, and development. The Urumqi dialogue offers a practical platform, but it should not be overburdened with unrealistic expectations. So the immediate goal should be minimum workable cooperation. The wearable counterterrorism steps face the border reopening, protect trade corridors, human refugee management, and regular crisis communication. Closed border may be a contemporary response, but they cannot become a long-term strategy. So the future should be manage the engagement, not manage the hostility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ma. Before I request Amara Durrani Saiba to say something, may I request Javed Hassan Saab? You recently returned once again from China. You picked up some wisdom there on how the Chinese conduct business and bilateral, multilateral relations. So if you could add your wisdom to this forum.
Okay, as limited as that wisdom is, I would, first of all, I am perplexed. So I just throw this question before I say what the Chinese I might say, and I have Dr. Ma here, and I feel embarrassed to say what the Chinese might think, but anyway, I'll try. But I am perplexed. Has there been any policy statement ever stated by Pakistan, which you might be able, as to why we conduct these bombing raids, as to what the objective is, and how we will achieve whatever we plan to achieve by having these bombings where 21 civilians are killed, sometimes more are killed. So I'm sure there are some very pertinent and good reasons why we do it, and there's some things we will achieve which will eliminate probably TTP. But whatever it is, I'd love to know, because I for one, have never heard a clear policy statement. With regards to the Chinese perspectives, and I feel very embarrassed to say, but because I feel, Dr. Ma might say, what is he talking about? But from my understanding is that the Chinese take a very different view to our approach to border relationships. As far as they can, they would want to, they have had their differences with India, with Vietnam, and also very famously in Korea with America, but they really want to have at this stage minimal confrontation with any country anywhere in the world. The Chinese, from my understanding, is that while they want to see a strong defense force and credible deterrence, there is no desire for China to take any offensive position in anything. And they find it, from my conversations, they find our great desire to pick fights all over the place somewhat bewildering, given our economic situation. And in fact, they keep saying, and I've heard this, and that's, I know this emotionally, we will not ever accept that. Why do you want to even have disagreements with Israel, for instance? I mean, get on, have trade relationships. So I think this is a nation which over the last 30 years has focused so aggressively to economic enhancement that it finds the idea of trying to have belligerent approach somewhat difficult. Yes, recently you might see some belligerence towards Japan, but there also it is much more the economic leverage that is used than any hostile gunfire of any sort. And again, in Taiwan, a lot of people, when Iran-US happened, a lot of people in Pakistan were saying, oh, this will be a great opportunity to take over Taiwan, given the distraction America is having. My conversations with just about anyone, and these are academics which Dr. Ma knows, everyone said that is a ridiculous suggestion. China has no intention of waging aggressive war to take over Taiwan. This is a natural part of China and eventually will become part of China anyway. So it's a very different psychology, a very different policy. It probably comes from greater confidence. It does not need that kind of belligerent approach, which we seem to take great pride in, which, it probably even India does. Last year's, what was it, Operation Sindoor was an unmitigated disaster, not for Pakistan as much as India. Again, that kind of subcontinental belligerence seems to be a societal thing, a political thing, which definitely is not the case in China. And you can see the Ministry of Foreign Affairs say some harsh things, but again, it's always restrained. Their foreign minister says things in a very poetic way and always finds a way to navigate very tricky situations, even in the most difficult of times. So I think it's chalk and cheese, and while they are very kind to us, and I think my impression is they are somewhat surprised by our attitudes. There's another thing I would like to say. I mean, this is a general closed border thing. Is this famous French free market economist of the sort of 19th century, Frédéric Bastiat, who said that where trade does not, or goods do not cross borders, soldiers do. So it's something worth noting that where you close borders to trade, even if it's not soldiers, some other kind of miscreants might cross. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Javed Sampa. It's a very sobering thought. Amara Durrani, you wanted to say something based on your experience with Sudan?
Thank you, sir. As someone who's been trained for 30 years for participation in track 1.5 and track 2 dialogues, fundamental principle that we are asked whenever we come to such a table is to kind of deliberately back off from statist positions and try to reimagine what a future would look like, especially a peaceful future. And I think your key question, the title of is asking us to reimagine. So I'm going to kind of deliberately step aside, back off from statist positions, and offer some observations. The first thing that I think I really want to address in your title is the shifting regional order. Some comments have been made by my senior colleagues that regional actors will need to step in and dissolve the situation. My respectful submission, sir, is that I have watched the Pakistan-India and the Pakistan-Afghanistan tracks my whole life. What I'm seeing now, unfortunately, is a mirroring of the power dynamic between the Pakistan-India track and now being imposed on the Pakistan-Afghanistan. It's carefully selected word. It's a mirroring of the Pakistan-India power dynamic that we are seeing in the Pakistan-Afghanistan. The language and the issue is exactly the same, terrorism. And who is perceived as a more powerful state or entity. So that's the first submission that I want to make. Building up on that, my fear based on assessment is that Pakistan is already losing and stands to lose much more on its relationship with Afghanistan than it potentially has with India. This, I say, when the Bretton Woods system has already in the last few years made the structural reorientation around regional fault lines. Pakistan is no longer I'm very happy that we have multilateral representatives sitting here for Moro Current. Pakistan is no longer part of the South Asia basket. It is part of MENAP. So how the finance is going to flow over the next few years? Pakistan has been put adjacent to Afghanistan, and my fear is that if we are going to mirror the same dynamic that we had with India, we have much, much more to lose at a time when we are severely cash-strapped. The regional route was undertaken when Pakistan took the initiative of the Special Representative Office setting up. Pakistan was driving the regional actor engagement for solutions for Afghanistan. Sadly, in my assessment, Pakistan today stands in the cold, whereas all other regional players, whether it's China, whether it's Central Asian republics, whether it's Iran, whether it's Russia and India, they have established pragmatic, functionally cooperative relationships with Afghanistan. I think I was very happy to listen to Hamza's submissions and insight. I think Pakistan really needs to take a leaf from Central Asian republics on how they're conducting their business, and even Iran. And finally, on the regional situation, my fear is that whatever happens, whatever new detente is established with Iran by the United States, it will happen, the new detente. My fear is, if Pakistan does not secure a functional cooperative relationship with Afghanistan before that happens, we will continue to stand out in the cold and miss out on those strategic, commercial, financial, infrastructural opportunities that our economy needs. My last point, sir. When the US established its rapprochement dialogue with the communist China, it did so knowing that the Chinese state structure and political philosophy is completely opposite to the US. When the US established its detente with Russia, track 1, track 2, track 1.5, during the Cold War years, it knew that Russia is a communist state, the state apparatus, etc., is completely different to its own sense of political and state philosophy. That continues till today as the US engages in a managed rivalry with China. To look to China for something more than what it is already doing, I'm afraid, is a waste of time. China is engaged in a much larger geopolitical evolving situation, carefully hedged. Pakistan will need to come up with its own formula, and I think, sir, here the multilateral financial institutions have made the biggest investments. It is time that if they want those investments to bear fruit, we understand the pressures that are coming from unilateral entities on multilateral Bretton Woods system for reforms. It is important because they have the envelope size and they have the technical capacities that the regional countries do not. You will need that financial envelope and those technical capacities to bring the two together towards functional cooperation. So I think it's very important that the multilateral financial institutions play some kind of a more incentive-based role than they have done so far. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mara Durrani. Dr. Salma Malik from the Qaeda-e-Azam University, you wanted to...
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Imtiaz. Amara has said so many things. I really feel that I should just say that's more than enough. But few things that were discussed around the table, and that kind of gets me thinking, and I would take lead from the last segment that you have, Pakistan's strategic moment. It is a lot to celebrate, and rightfully celebrate as much as we can. But at the same time, I think we need to be very realistic, because number one, it's a very narrow window of opportunity. We should celebrate because everyone wants to celebrate this moment with us, but are they really celebrating this moment for us, in a sense that what does Pakistan actually read out of the Islamabad MOU? Do we have a vision beyond just signing of the MOU and having nice headlines and a thump on the back from Trump and all these characters who are very transitionary in their nature? Today we have forgotten all that narrative and the rhetoric that we would say whenever we are on the lower point or lower side of the American relations, that these relationships are primarily transactional and the US only comes around whenever it needs some work. And this is exactly what has happened now as well. Agreed, Pakistan went ahead. It's a great job done. And I think as much as we appreciate this moment, it's very appropriate and we should do that. But there's life beyond this Islamabad MOU. What does Pakistan actually want out of this MOU? Have you really thought about it? One aspect. Have we thought about what happens next? Do we really remain trapped in celebrating our mediation role and really get trapped in a situation where if things go wrong beyond the 60 days, then we end up taking the entire blame on ourselves? So that is also an issue. But of course, that's not the purview of this conversation. But why I'm mentioning all this is because as the Iranian war was happening, the military operations in Afghanistan had heightened. And as has been pointed out by the speakers before us, why had it happened? Who had planned that? Diplomacy is not really being run by the civilian stakeholders. It's not actually diplomacy. The foreign or defense policy or whatever, a hybrid version of that, is not being run by the stakeholders who are supposed to run it. So that is why we'll keep on seeing a very militaristic approach towards Afghanistan, which is absolutely on the wrong. Most of the steps that we have done, asking Afghan nationals to leave, many things are not wrong if we look from a very, very hard perspective. But the way we have done that, the timings of those things, many a times really went against that. I was just looking up how many flights fly from Islamabad to Afghanistan, 2 daily. From India to Afghanistan, minimum 2 daily. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other airlines who are doing this job. So India is very much in the picture. Again, at the cost of saying that we should not make our policies India specific, but few things that we need to really look here is that this window of opportunity where at the same time we are no longer part of the South Asian, or we are not being looked upon as a South Asian country, but in the MENAP region, have we really figured out the consequence or the larger stakes that are at hand? We are not really looking at that. If we don't settle the Afghan problem amicably for ourselves, this notion of MENAP, I think Pakistanis have this complex of being part of the larger Arabic part of the story, but we are not Arabs. And no one is going to even think, even if we wear the thobe and everything and start speaking in Arabic, which we do whenever we return from Umrah or Hajj, or otherwise. I'm sorry, Amara, no reflection to you. I also went there. We start thinking that we are Arabs. We are not Arabs. So we have to really figure out what is our space in this notion. China came to us in 1996 and they told us that you have to put your contentious issues on a back burner and focus on your economy. We downplayed that. We started to say that China hasn't said that, put Kashmir on the back burner, but today Kashmir is on the back burner. No one is talking about Kashmir, and we haven't even resolved our economic puzzle. So where do we want to go with this? In this particular notion, if we actually give a reprisal of post-Islamabad MOU situation, I'll just take 2 more minutes of Imtiaz, I'm sorry, I'm hogging. Okay, 1 minute. We did what we did. We delivered the goods for the US. We provided them with that window of opportunity. This window of opportunity for us is very limited. What are we going to do with this? Are we really thinking that we can bypass Afghanistan and have some good terms with Iran? are we so good with our foreign and defense policy articulation that we would be able to sustain this good moment with Iran for the longer time? I'm not too sure. The pressure on Pakistan from UAE, from Saudi Arabia would eventually catch up on us, and we really have to figure out how we manage our ground situation. Even if at the cost of sounding cliched, India is using Afghanistan very proactively, but that is also the mantra that the military uses to justify its military operations. We have to actually indulge into massive CBMs at all levels to make things better. As an academic, whenever we have Afghan students coming to Pakistan, the biggest problem that we would have with those Afghan students was that we would commit to having an N number of students, but then we won't have the money being released from the government, and that would create problems. So even if we go for softer policies, we have to make that infrastructural investment to make things work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salma. Yes, you have been actually witnessing this also yourself at the university. Dr. General Inam, you want to say something quickly? So before I request Hamid Sharif Saab to sum up and also offer his observations, because he has been long associated with the Asian Development Bank and then the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. For several years he spent in Beijing, so he also has a very unique perspective as far as Pakistan is concerned and what our policies are concerned. Actually has been at pains to explain also to the Chinese. So General Inam,
thank you.
Very briefly please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points that I want to clarify. I don't speak for the military. I'm a retired person, but I'm a researcher also, so some facts have to be cleared. Nasir Yassin, he left. I wish he was around. I would have asked him the question that when you were at the helm of the affair, what did you do? It was very good to talk when you retire, sit down in a nice attire and speak nice things, but and then criticize everything under the sun. The Pakistan's policy during the dialogue was very clear. We want to have our Afghan-owned and Afghan-led process inside Afghanistan. This was a very clear policy in Pakistan. As for the status of Afghanistan, Pakistan's policy was very clear. We want an independent, non-aligned, peaceful Afghanistan with our neighbor. This was the major plank of the policy, so let's not go away with the wrong ideas. Somebody talked about the military operation. What is the policy? I think you said, sir. Apologies, no offense meant. The military operation, the policy has been clearly said by the defense minister, by the prime minister, and by the chief of the army staff. We will hit at the base of the operation if there is a terrorist attack in Pakistan. There has been no ambiguity on that, and perhaps, as far as my 40 years military career is concerned, Pakistan has never been so clear as it is now about the relationship with Afghanistan. Somebody talked about Pakistan, the only one that faces everything. Yeah, Pakistan is the only one in the neighborhood which has got a TTP problem. No other nation has a TTP problem. So till the time we overcome this problem, we are not going to see peace in the area. And then trade and economy, everything, as you said very rightly, the trade and the commerce is subservient to the geostrategic construct internationally. And that is the case, unfortunately. Afghanistan is not a normal country. We are not dealing with a normal country. The guys are not schooled in diplomacy. They are not schooled in governance. They are irredentist. They are very, very extremely conservative. They have a view of Islam, which is actually the rural view of Islam from Pathan villages. So what do you do with them? Unfortunately, as I said earlier, and I will just finish again by reiterating those points, 2 points only. Conflict is not a natural course of action when it comes to bilateralism between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Secondly, socio-economic calculation need to be prevail over the zero-sum geopolitical considerations. Now, in order to actualize this thing, I think we have to go for some sort of a regime change in Afghanistan. I don't see personally any hope for the present political change in Afghanistan now, in near future or in distant future. So the regime change in whatever contraction, whatever combination is the only answer perhaps. Thank you.
Hamza, do you want to have some last few words before we let you go and wrap up the meeting here? Or Wahid Saab, very quickly, you have 1 or 2 minutes each.
Well, I was wondering, just add some 3 points to my previous talk. When it comes to relationship between specifically Uzbekistan and Afghanistan, I think I would call it like, the Uzbekistan, the president also and the academic community in the country always, they regard Afghanistan as an integral part of Central Asia. That's kind of Uzbekistan's Afghanistan policy, unofficial concept of Uzbekistan when it comes to building relationship with Afghanistan. That's Uzbekistan considers Afghanistan as an integral part of Central Asia. That's a concept, and in reality, that concept is being realized, put in place by pragmatism and economic relations. So I would call the relationship between Uzbekistan and Afghanistan as economic convergence, I would say. But it needs more than economic relationships, so that's why another strategy, a little more wider strategy towards Afghanistan could be called like a strategic convergence between Afghanistan and first Uzbekistan and then wider Central Asian countries. And I think Central Asian countries, including Uzbekistan, should recognize the role of Pakistan when it comes to have a good relationship with Afghanistan. So that's why I would call the future relationship with Central Asian countries and Pakistan when it comes to having a good neighborly relationship with Afghanistan, I would call it like strategic entanglement. Why? Because whatever happens in Afghanistan, whatever happens in terms of relationship between Central Asian countries and Afghanistan, it always affects the Pakistan foreign policy and the Pakistan-Afghanistan policy. So that's what I recognize, and many experts here in Uzbekistan recognize the role of Afghanistan for national security of Pakistan. So that's why I think I would call the relationship between Central Asian countries and Pakistan as a strategic entanglement. Why? Because if you look at the space and two particles, if you entangle that two particles, it affects one, it immediately senses, another immediately senses, despite the fact those two particles are located far distance from each other. So
Thank you.
I would call that relationship
Okay.
on that sense.
Okay, thank you very much. Javed sir, you want to?
I just have one question. I'm sorry I'm insisting on this and probably sounding very stupid, but you said that we have a clearly stated policy that we will hit only the Taliban or TTP bases. Fine, that's a very clear policy. But what is the objective of this? What are you going to achieve with it? Are TTP going to disappear by hitting these people? Are we not actually playing into the hands of TTP by actually doing what they would want, which is aggravating the situation between Afghanistan and Pakistan? The terrorist acts very often to create a situation where you overreact and it aggravates the situation. So I am still bewildered as to what is the eventual objective of this. I may be missing something gravely, but I am completely bewildered as to what it is. And again, it may be completely foreign press or Indian press or whoever. When you go and, 200 people die in Afghanistan, in Kabul, and many of them are supposed to be rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation patients, it does not really help yourself in the society and create your messaging. Recently, about 21. So I'm sure the TTP are dreadful and the Taliban are not particularly nice people to allow this to happen. But are we not playing into their hands by doing what we are doing?
This is a major question, basically.
Especially when they have the population as human sheep.
Okay. So I think we'll hand over to Hamid Sharif Saab, Asian Development Bank and its Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, your long experience. So you have an arduous task actually to sum up the meeting as well as offer your observations within 5-6 minutes.
It's been a very rich discussion. I think let's just reflect back. I think clearly terrorism and TTP is at the heart of the current impasse. And it is in the nature of human beings that we focus on the immediate. But I think it's very wise to not lose the wider context. While the immediate problem attracts our attention, it should not be at the expense of the much broader relationship which is out there. And I think the message for neighbors is that if today the TTP is questioning whether Pakistan is an Islamic state, then tomorrow it's going to question whether China is one, whether Uzbekistan is one, whether Tajikistan is one, and will it then spawn terrorist groups to fight that? So I think this is not a Pakistan problem. This is a regional, universal problem that if they're going to tolerate this sort of terrorism, then Pakistan has to take a strong stand, but along with the neighbors. So I think we need a regional approach in which the neighbors should join in this fight, and this is non-negotiable. I think the Taliban government has to give an unequivocal commitment to fight terrorism. Without that, I don't think the regional partners can feel comfortable. Having said that, if anything should have been learned after the Second World War, it is the importance of trade. I mean, while I hold a British nationality and I'm ashamed of Brexit, but I think in the Brexit debate, what got lost was that perhaps the greatest achievement after the Second World War is EU and no conflict because of Europe, because of trade, because of economic relationships. And we're losing sight of that. I think trade and economic relations buys you more leverage, and we have lost that. But you can, and the other thing we learned from the Chinese art of war, you never carry out a threat. You threaten, but you don't carry it out. I think we have lost that. And by carrying out the threat now of cutting off trade, we have allowed Afghanistan to build other relationships, and they will strengthen because other countries want to trade. They want to replace Pakistan if they can. That's very natural in economic affairs. So I think we need a reset on trade and relations, such as student exchanges. I was in my first job in Pakistan teaching at the International Islamic University. I was teaching two of the leaders' sons who are now in Pakistan, in Afghanistan as my students. We've lost touch with that sort of a relationship. But I think it's very important to bring back those relationships. We also have to be mindful. I think someone said it, that Afghanistan is not a normal state. It hasn't been for 200, 300 years. The central problem of the Afghan state is it cannot collect taxes. It doesn't have enough money. There's not enough productivity in the country. So you've had a strange state for centuries, which is confined to Kabul. It exists by consensus. It cannot assert its writ for all practical purposes. So we have to be wary of this, that if we want the Afghan Taliban to eliminate the terrorists, we're probably going to have to help them very seriously with large dollops of money and other military assistance. That is where I feel that the dialogue should be. I would also mention the larger context of Carrick. I've seen Carrick for a long, long time. Carrick is the most contested space on earth. At one time, you had the Russians who were trying to get back their empire. You had the Chinese as a rising power. You had the Americans with the Japanese saying, we can't let the Chinese and the Russians take over. And this is still going on. While the Russia-China thing, well, there are more closer on one page, the other things are still continuing. So when you unpack Carrick and the dynamics of how the MDBs are working, this is a very fascinating stage, and so we have to understand that context. Very lastly, I'll just end up on a note. Pakistan is seriously losing the narrative. Javed Saab mentioned one aspect of it. you kill ordinary people. That is the news that gets out. You're claiming to kill terrorists, but the world press is reporting something else. You lose the global narrative. You lose the narrative within your own country as well. So I think we may not like the Taliban government, but we should not lose sight of our much richer, deeper relationship with the people of Afghanistan. We hosted them here. I had students here who I never treated differently than Pakistanis. They were fantastic people. And I think in the last few years, by throwing out the refugees in the way we did, and in the local establishment-sponsored narrative we have lost a lot. And I think we need a reset on that. We need to regain that space for where Pakistan has a broader, more international perspective and a more humanitarian perspective. That, I think, has to come back to the way we reimagine, to use your word, the future relationship. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
With Carrick, just wanted to add, it's an American problem. The Chinese are wary of that, Russians are wary of that. I'm telling you from the political perspective.
Right.
The recipients, mine. We may be sold to Carrick, but it was a project to cause some kind of friction within the Central Asian states.
Well, if I can just add, I think the friction came later. I think from where I sat in ADB with other colleagues who worked on Carrick, it's a genuine regional cooperation. But the way it happened.
Dealing with the region.
No.
Chennai, I think we can.
Speak over the tea.
Yeah, we can speak over the tea. So at the end, thank you very much to everybody. It was a very lively discussion. Thank you very much, Hamza and Wahid Saab. Yes, I appreciate you took time out in this searing heat. Yes, it's been useful. We'll put together some document and then also run it by you to see if you can add something to it. Just because the idea is to develop some sort of consensus, some policy, recommend some policy measures. So whatever little we can contribute as public intellectuals, thinkers. Thank you very much, Hamza and Wahid Saab. And okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
In 1961, our border was closed for over a year. Actual fighting.